In this video, I will show you how to create a chili pepper using Gaussian blurs and the draw inside mode. And this was actually what I had created. I'm going to show you how to create in just a second. I just want to show you the vector path here, okay? And of course, this is the photograph. So first of all, let's start off with a new page. Print size document will be fine. And then we're going to go to File and Place. And we're going to do this like with the gradient mesh where I had placed it. So first of all, we've got a few different images I'll give you to choose from. We're going to go place it, and we're going to place it as a template, okay? We don't need to click link. We'll do place. All right, now we're going to place it again, but as a photograph, okay, as a picture. So let's get that there. We're not going to click template this time, and we'll just put it over to here, all right? And then we'll make a new layer, and we're going to work on this new layer. And before I start on this new layer, I can already see that it's this light green color as far as the vector path, the anchor points, and that is very distracting. So I'm going to just change it to dark green. I don't know why Adobe decided to do that, but anyway, let's continue on. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to trace this out using the pen tool, or we could use the pencil tool if you have a tablet. Maybe a little faster. I'm just going to click around here and do the best I can and not be too picky, so I won't be getting too involved where I have to undo things. I'm just trying to get this done enough so that you can see how to trace it out. It doesn't have to be an exact tracing. We just want to capture, you know, the contour of this pepper, and we don't, like I said, it doesn't have to have everything. If we need to, we can go back in and fix it too. And as you can see here, I'm not really going back and killing the second handle like I've done in other tutorials. And the reason for this is because if I want this to look a little smoother going throughout with all these little curvy bumps, then I really don't need to go back and kill that second handle unless I come across some area where I definitely need to do it. But in this case, I didn't need to do that, okay? So I got that traced around pretty fast. What we're going to do is we're going to pick color here. And I picked this kind of darker color right in there. We'll pick, yeah, maybe something like that. I'm just choosing some different ones here. Okay, I'm going to choose this one right here because of how I'm going to make this. So once we get this drawn out, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go to here. It's set to draw to normal. We're going to go to, there's draw behind, but we're going to go to what's called draw inside. And then this dotted line kind of appears here. And there's some issues with this because it's kind of hard. If you start drawing inside something, a lot of times what will occur is you may be taken out of that mode back to normal mode, and then you can't get back. Well, I'm going to show how to work around that too, okay? So anyway, let me hold down the Command key and click on the eye on my layers palette so we can actually look at the vector path and our template. And I'm going to move some of these over. I'm going to actually just close this. We'll use it later on. I won't need the transparency palette. Might need the magic wand. We'll just leave that over there. All right, so now let's zoom in here. And I'm going to first trace out this shape. And I'm going to be a little faster on this just to save time. I'm going to use my pencil tool. But if you are working with a trackpad or a mouse, you may just want to use the pen tool like I did for the last shape I traced out. The outer contour. What we're going to do is I'm going to make this shape and I'm going to make it go outside. Kind of like what we were doing for the mummy poster when we were drawing shapes outside the rectangle. And the reason we're doing this is because, let's go back to preview mode. We're going to click on the Command key, click on this eye, and whoops, there we go. And then we're going to change its color to this darker color. So what draw inside does is it actually creates what's called a clipping mask, okay? I'm going to hit Command H for a moment. Command H hides our paths that are selected. And so what it will do is anything that's drawn outside of here is going to disappear. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to soften this edge so that it looks blended. Okay? And we're going to do Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Okay? And this will bring this palette up. And as you can see, it's already softened it. All right? We don't need to soften it too much, but you can control it here. I'm going to actually put quite a bit on there, just like that, because so it looks more photographic, okay? And then we click OK. And the reason why we have to do Draw Inside is Draw Inside creates what is called a clipping mask, or clipping path, that is, not mask. Well, if you see it over here under Object, it's called clipping mask, and we'll show you how to deal with that also, because if something goes awry where you can't do it with this Draw Inside mode, I will show you how to do it with that clipping mask, okay? But anyway, when you put a Gaussian blur on a shape, it applies it on all the edges. I remember one student asked me one time, can you apply it on just one edge? And it's like, no, you can't. Well, this is the way you can make it look as if it's applied on one edge, because the rest is being cropped out. Now, let's continue on. I'm going to click on my Command key, click on this eye, and then we're going to trace out. I'm going to just use my pencil tool because it's a little quicker here for my demonstration. And for those of you who have a Wacom tablet, you could try it with it. You could try use your pencil tool with it. You just want to make sure you close all your paths if you're drawing with the pencil tool. And let's see here. I'll just take this all the way around here and go out like this. Okay. And make sure you go back to your and close that path. And we can zoom in there to see. It looks like it's a little tangled there. Sometimes it's hard to get to things. And, oh, I got Command H. Command H, remember, does that. Also, the other thing, too, is it looks like it got a little tangle. Well, remember, with the pencil tool, if I hold down the Alt key, especially if I have my options, and I just double-click the pencil tool to pull up my options, but you want to make sure that all these are checked. And one of the things that is being checked is Option key toggles the Smooth tool, and I can just sort of go around this, and it will smooth that out if I need to. Or I can always just trace back over. There we go. All right. So anyway, I'm just being picky with that, but I thought I would show you that just in case. All right. So anyway, let's continue on. I'm going to make this color a little lighter, not the lightest, but something like that. And then we're going to do, again, Gaussian Blur. So we go up to Effect, and there we go, Effect. And under Effect, the last effect we use will appear. Now, we can apply the same Gaussian Blur, which might be useful. Okay, that's it right there. It's a little too much. We'll undo it, Command Z. Or we can go and do, it says Gaussian Blur, so we don't have to go drag all the way down here to blur Gaussian Blur. It'll just be up here, whatever our last effect is. And we can adjust this so it goes it's a little smaller there, okay? There we go. And we'll see what this looks like when I deselect it. I'll just do Shift Command A. Okay, so that looks pretty good like that, okay? So let's continue on. And I'm just making these shapes. And the one that I'd shown you, I actually drew with the pen tool. I just kind of clicked around, and I was being a little looser than I usually am. But the thing about the pencil tool is, I can just trace right on top, and it makes my life a lot easier. And so I had one student in one class last term, and they asked me, should I get, should they get a Wacom tablet or a Cintiq? And my basic reply to that was, if you plan on drawing more outside of the class you're taking, then yes, definitely. If you plan on drawing after this course, and you're going to be drawing more and more, a Wacom tablet or a Cintiq would be a useful thing to have. And you can always check one out at the school if they have some, because they loan quite a few out already. So let me continue on here. And I'm just going to click this shape right here, okay? And then we're going to do Gaussian Blur on it. And might just up this just a little bit and then deselect. See, that creates a nice form there. This is very fast, especially with using the pencil tool. Okay, but like I said, if you don't have the pencil tool and you're having to trace out around things, then what you want to do is you don't have to be so precise. Like I'm going to start putting in some of these highlights here. There's a highlight. It's not quite a highlight because it's not super. Let me get my pen tool here, and I'm just going to do it really smooth here. Maybe make it a little bit wider than what it really should be. Because one thing too you could do is if you wanted to roughen it up, like using your, let's say we draw this shape here. As you can see, it's kind of bumpy edge there. What I was thinking of doing is actually going to do roughen. So let's go to preview mode after we draw that. We'll just leave that color for the moment, and then I'm going to go up to effect. I'm going to use a different effect here. If I'm going to roughen this, I'm going to go to distort and roughen, and we're going to bring the size down really small, but then we're going to up the detail quite a bit here, and we could have it smooth. See, this is kind of a nice way if you were to try to get all that bumpy contour there. This might be your best bet, because we could do something like this, and then we'll just put in this other color here. And if we can't get that exact, well, that's pretty close there. If we want to, we can always make it just a little lighter. Well, I think I got a good color there. And then we go to effect, and this time, because I used roughen, I'm going to need to go to blur and Gaussian blur, okay? And so I'm going to make this just a little smaller here. And so that does a really nice job. You know, it's like I should have done that on my other one, but I did it at the end there. So anyway, let me get my pencil tool again because it's a little faster for me. Unless you want to do what I had just done with this, just draw a basic shape and then put roughen on it. Now this shape, what I'm going to do is, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. I don't want to do that. Is I'm going to put a gradient on this, because you can put a Gaussian blur on an object that has a gradient. And so let me put this gradient here in there, and then what we'll do is we'll just go and select, you know, this color here, and then we'll select maybe this lighter color here, and then we'll zoom in so we can see a little bit better here. There we go. See, it put a nice little gradient on that. And then we'll just flip that gradient so it goes from lighter to darker that way. Okay? And so now we'll just go to Gaussian blur. And they don't all have to have the same amount of Gaussian blur. Now, if you ever decide that, hey, you know, that's just too much Gaussian blur right there, or I want to do something, you know, you can always change it. But one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to go and do this, and that is go to effect and put another Gaussian blur on again, because you'll get this warning. This will apply another instance of this effect. To edit the current effect, double-click the name of the effect in the appearance palette. So if I was to do this, apply a new effect, and then make it less, it'll do it, but here's the issue that happens. And that is up under window, we'll go to the appearance palette. And this is what I was talking about with these instances. So this effect instances 1 and 2. Now, in the past, when I had taught this class, I'd had students that actually would apply Gaussian blur, didn't like it, and they'd keep applying it. And they would have like maybe 8 different Gaussian blurs on it. And then they had a bunch of different other shapes. And if they had about 15 shapes, 8 different Gaussian blurs, that made their files huge. And it made the file very hard to work with. So that's why it's important, if you want to change your Gaussian blur, that you actually just delete it, okay? And if you need to change it, you go to your appearance palette and just click on it. And it says double click, but I just clicked on it. And that brings this up, and then you can change it, okay? And I'm just going to up that just a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to put in some highlights here. So we'll go back to outline mode here. And I might just use a pen tool for these. They don't have to be exact. And what I'm going to do is just sort of make these very loose. And we'll just turn that to white right now. Now, just double check. Oh, they put a gradient on it. So what I'm going to do is just take the gradient. We'll just turn that off and then put just white in it. Okay. Now let's go back to. Good thing I checked that, because I would have had gradients on all these, which is fine, but this might make my job a little easier. We can make little squares. We don't need to draw every single one of these. We want to draw with using curves we can. Like I said, I might just pick up my pencil here in just a minute, but like something like this shape here, it actually kind of trails off here. It's interesting, but I'm just going to make it like this, and then maybe we might put roughing on that to make it look cool. Okay. And then, I'm just going to do two separate shapes here. And this is up to this gives you a little bit more ability to kind of interpret what the shape can be versus tracing it out exactly as we did with the mummy assignment, where we're trying to get as close in as possible and make sure it really looks like that shape. This way we could just kind of be much more choppy with it. And just get the basic shape overall. Now let's go and look at this. Okay, so I went back to preview mode. Now I want to get to all these quickly, so I'm going to use my magic wand here to get to all these quickly. And let's put a Gaussian blur on this, and then we might have to put roughing on some of them, okay? So let's go and do Gaussian blur. And we can't go too high, because this is what happens is if you go too high and you got really small shapes with your Gaussian blur, you'll lose the shape. So you've got to think in terms of how much of a Gaussian blur you can put on all these and still have it a little fuzzy, okay? Now let me deselect it. I'm going to do Shift Command A, okay? And yeah, I think what I want to do is I want to roughen a few of these. And I've got my picture over here. So let's take this one and maybe this one and this one and probably that one too, okay? Because these are bigger shapes. And let's go and do Effect and Distort and Roughen. And we'll just make sure that the size is very small, but then we're going to up the detail quite a bit here. And it should do a kind of a nice job there. We could change that to smooth too. Okay, and let's do click OK and then do Shift Command A. And it doesn't look too bad, It's looking pretty good now. Now, I'm going to do something where I'm going to get out of this for a moment, because this occurs. And that is, I was working on the first one, and somehow I went and turned off my layer like that. And then I came back, and you notice that little dotted line? It's gone. And if I go back to this object, I'm hoping Adobe got better, but no. See, Adobe, this is a problem here, okay? You can't get back to draw inside mode once you get out of it. And I've had that happen I've had it happen to myself several times. And it happens to students all the time. And it's like, but what we can do to get around this, and I wish Adobe would fix that, because they've had this for a long time here, is we're going to draw a shape here. And I'm going to zoom in on this one right here. You see this slightly darker color here? We're gonna make a shape, and I'm just gonna zoom in here a little bit, and I'll just go to outline mode here, and just so I can see my vector path. And we're gonna go to my pen tool, and I'm gonna make a shape that kind of is on the edge here, inside. and we'll just take it down here and maybe have it go out there, something like that. And then once we go out, we can go way outside of here, okay? And then let's go to preview mode, and then we'll click on the eyedropper and pick up a darker color here. And what I'm gonna pick, the darkest red I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the whole shape and cut it, Command X. And then I'm going to get my direct selection tool and just click on this shape inside here, because that's the shape that's on top of this other outside shape. And I'm going to do what's called paste in front, which is Command F, and we've done that a lot of times. And see, that will actually put it back inside there. We can't do draw inside anymore, but we can cut things if they go outside the edge, and we can paste them in like that. Let me zoom in a little bit more here. Now we'll put a Gaussian blur on this, and we can turn off the template so that doesn't interfere with what we're seeing here. And we have to go to blur and Gaussian blur. I had keyboard shortcuts. I could probably set up something there. I'll have to check into that. And we just want to make this kind of blurry here, okay? So I'll do OK. And that kind of adds a little bit more definition to that, okay? And so continuing on here, we don't need to do too much more. There's this kind of shape here. It's we might want to do a roughened shape or do a bunch of little shapes. So let's go to outline mode. Oops, let's turn back my template back on. And I'm just going to use my pencil tool, make sure I'm on the right layer. Now here's the deal. If we have shapes and they are not going to have to meet the edge, and we're going to definitely blur these little shapes that I'm making here. But what I was going to say is, since none of these really have to go up to the edge unless we want to push one up to the edge, then we don't have to cut it. As long as they are floating inside this shape, we won't have to cut those things. So I'm just going to go, and I'm afraid that if I pick them all, I'm going to pick that other last dark color. So I'm just going to hit the, now you can use the direct selection tool like what I'm doing, or you can use the group selection tool to select all these at once, okay? And that dark green is fighting with that. And if I want to make sure that this is being selected, okay, yeah, they're all selected. Whoops, I missed one. That's why I did that. So now using that violet there. Now we can go and get my eyedropper and pick off of here. And then we can, now one of the things that's hard about seeing the Gaussian blur along with the anchor points is sometimes it's hard to see how, if it's too much or too little. Well, as I had done before, we can do Command H. And I just got to remember that I did this. This is hide the selection. In order to see it again, we have to do Command H again. My problem is I forget. And I will probably do that during this video. Just forget that was on. I've already done that once. But anyway, let's continue on. We'll go to Effect and Gaussian Blur. And that's way too much because there's little shapes, but we'll make it more like that. All right. And I deselected it, but let's do Command H just to make sure that the next shape we draw. And you see, we get something that looks fairly cool, fairly nice there. Now, there is this part right here. And instead of splitting, and what I'm talking about is there's this darker shape, and it looks like it kind of cuts through there, especially over on this, you can kind of see here. Well, we'll just draw another shape here. And maybe I'll just use my pen tool this time and kind of make a lightning bolt type of shape cutting through here. See, a lot of times, even though I have a Wacom tablet and I have a Cintiq, I will switch back and forth between using the pen tool and using the pencil tool, because sometimes I just get a little bored using the same tool. All right, so now let's go and we'll put a Gaussian blur on that. We might have to change the color too. And remember, this thing is floating, so we don't have to cut and paste it. And if I do Command H, we can see what that looks like without deselecting it. All right, so not bad, not bad. I really like that effect there. If we want to, I could put a gradient in that. But anyway, this looks pretty close. We do have another lighter color in here I could put in here real quickly, and I see it kind of going around there because this is a little dark. So what I'm going to do is let's just trace around this part here, and I'm going to make this a lighter color, and I'm going to have to cut and paste this thing because of where it's going to go. All right, so I'm going to get this bright red color. There we go. And we're going to cut that shape, Command X, and then I'm going to paste it. Oops, got to use the direct selection tool or the group selection tool. I can use that. There we go. And do paste and back, because that's going to go behind that shape. And now let's put a little Gaussian blur on this. Okay, and I could do. Now I can't do Command H while I'm in this mode. That's one thing that upsets me here. Because that would be nice if I could quickly turn. Well, if I do turn off and on preview, all that does is it turns off the preview of the Gaussian blur. It doesn't turn off those anchor points. But so let's deselect and just take a look at it. I can live with that. You know, this looks a lot better. All right. So anyway, that's how we would do this pepper. We would do a similar thing on this stem, and this will be a lot less complicated than the one we did with gradient mesh. And generally, I'm just tracing out this shape, the contour. And then we'll change that to green once I get it all done. Okay, now, we're going to pick kind of a middle green. And we'll send this shape to the back. So we'll do Shift Command left bracket. And then let's go to outline, back to outline mode there. And then we're going to just trace out a couple of little shapes here. I'll deselect it. But before we do that, well, we'll do the draw inside. Okay? So we're going to be drawing inside this one because we're going to have a couple of shapes here that go outside of it. This is going to be one. Now, one problem I always have is if I'm drawing and it hits the line exactly, it's kind of hard to close that shape there. And it's still having a little tough time there. I'm going to have to zoom in here. I don't know why it's giving me such a hard time closing it. There it goes. All right. It doesn't want. All right. Got that one. There we go, finally. Okay, that closed that one. Always some little technical difficulties I have. And just the nature of things. And if you can learn to work around these little difficulties, it makes your life a lot easier. I'm going to trace out this highlight shape here. Okay, and just kind of curve this a little bit more. All right, so let's zoom out here and go back to, and we need to start changing these colors here. So let me go over here and get my group selection tool. And I know there's a shape there and there's a shape here. Only because I drew them. Because I couldn't see them. So we're going to turn that to dark. And then we're going to turn this one, oops, drag over here. We're going to turn this one, we could have probably just made it white, but I'm going to make it this lighter color here, okay? And then what we're going to do is just apply Gaussian blur to these shapes, okay? So let me go over here for just a second. Let's see here, get back to this group selection tool. And we'll put a Gaussian blur on this one. We're going to put probably different amounts on. this one here. Yeah, that's too much on that one. Okay, and then this one here, and that may be just the right amount. And then once we are through drawing in that, like let's say we need to draw another shape. If you're going to draw another shape for something, let's say you're working on illustration, you've got another shape to trace out. Mind you, you're still in draw inside mode, so if you're drawing, you won't see your shape. Okay? So if you need to draw another shape, that's when you actually exit it. Okay? And that's how we create this. Now, I'm going to go back here for just a moment here, because I wanted to talk to you about the clipping mask. Now, this draw inside mode really is nice if you can maintain that mode or know how to work around it. But basically, what Adobe's done when they created that draw inside mode was they created kind of this clipping mask that you're able to work inside. And in the old days, in order to do something like this, you would have to, and I'm going to turn off my template there so we can just see this. You would have to take your bottom shape, like all these shapes are I haven't put any Gaussian blurs on these yet, and I won't really need to because I'm just talking about doing a clipping mask. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom shape and we're going to copy it, Command C. Then I'm going to paste in front, Command F, and then I'm going to bring it all the way to the front, Shift Command right bracket. Now I'm going to go and select. We use our main selection tool here. I'm going to select all these shapes. That's why the stem sits up there by itself. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object, Clipping Mask, and Make. And that is basically what happens with Draw Inside mode. So if you're ever having difficulty with Draw Inside mode, you could draw all your shapes, copy the bottom one, and do it like I did. You probably even, and then you can go back in here and put Gaussian blurs on as you need them. Because that's basically what Draw Inside mode does, okay? And it's just important to kind of know that because, like I said, a lot of times I've had some issues with this. But if you do have issues, then you might want to consider just drawing out your shapes, stacking them the way you want to, and then copy that bottom shape. And I'll just do it one more time here instead of just explaining it here. We'll go in here. We'll do this with the stem here. So I would take that shape, Command C, and I would paste in front, and then I would bring it all the way to the front, which is Shift Command right bracket, and then I would select over these, and then I would do Command 7, and that does the clipping mask, okay? And therefore I can go in here now and put Gaussian blurs on them. Anyway, this will end this video.